Take a look inside your fridge right now. You've probably got some leftovers, a soda, maybe some cheese, fruit that was picked thousands of miles away. To you, that's just Tuesday. But to the humans who came before you and the ones your body is still modeled after, none of that would register as food, not a single item. They would stare at it and see nothing familiar, nothing they could name. So what were they actually eating? The truth is stranger, darker, and more revealing than most people are ready for, because buried in caves, fossilized in bones, and locked inside your own cravings is a 3 million year story, and it starts somewhere most of us would never expect. Forget the image of a brave hunter taking down prey. Your earliest ancestors weren't hunters, they were last in line. On the African savanna, lions made the kills. Hyenas moved in after. By the time early humans arrived, the carcass was already stripped. Muscle gone, organs gone. What remained were the thick leg bones, the ones even hyena jaws couldn't crack. And that's exactly what our ancestors were after. Using sharp stone flakes, some of the earliest tools ever discovered, they would smash those bones open and scoop out what was inside. Bone marrow, raw, fatty, gray, slick. To us, revolting. To them, the highest calorie meal available in the wild. No other creature on the savanna could get at it. The marrow was locked behind bone walls too thick for any other animal to break. But early humans had something no other scavenger had. Hands precise enough to grip a rock and drive it with enough force to split the bone clean open. They ate skulls too. A cracked open skull yields nearly a pound of brain tissue, almost pure fat. And fat is the most energy-dense food that exists. For a species living on scraps at the edge of survival, a skull wasn't gruesome, it was a jackpot. The kind of find that meant the difference between making it through the day and not. Insects filled in the gaps. Termites, beetle larvae, fat grubs the size of a thumb. Crunchy, protein-rich, available year-round. This wasn't a desperate backup plan. For over 1 million years, insects were a staple, a reliable, nutrient-dense part of the daily diet. Not a last resort, just dinner. This was life, day after day, generation after generation, for longer than the human mind can really grasp. Then came fire. The oldest confirmed evidence of human-controlled fire sits inside Wonderwerk Cave in South Africa, roughly 1 million years old. And the moment our ancestors learned to cook, everything changed. Cooking is essentially pre-digestion. Raw meat and tough plant matter force the gut to spend enormous energy breaking them down. Cooked food arrives already partially deconstructed. Your body extracts more calories from every bite and spends far less energy doing it. The same piece of meat, roasted over coals, delivers dramatically more usable energy than the same piece eaten raw. The result? As cooking became routine, human digestive systems gradually shrank. And all that freed up energy was redirected, almost entirely to the brain. The human brain is only about 2% of your body weight, but it burns through 20% of your daily calories. You cannot sustain that kind of metabolic demand on raw leaves and insects alone. You need cooked, fat-rich, calorie-dense food. Fire didn't just warm our ancestors, it built the organ you're using right now to process these words. Every thought you've ever had was made possible by someone, 1 million years ago, holding meat over a flame. By around 300,000 years ago, early humans looked largely like modern people. And they were eating like it too. Mammoth, bison, wild horse, reindeer, fish pulled from rivers, shellfish cracked open on coastlines. Wild grains, roots dug from frozen earth, berries, mushrooms, and nuts gathered by hand, eggs stolen from nests, and honey, especially honey. The Hadza people of Tanzania offer one of the clearest living windows into pre-agricultural human diets. Roughly 15% of their total caloric intake comes from wild honey. They scale dangerous trees, endure hundreds of stings, and return again and again, because nothing else in the natural world delivers that concentration of energy in a single find. That craving didn't disappear when supermarkets arrived. It's still running in you. Your brain is hardwired for sugar because for hundreds of thousands of years, sweetness meant two things simultaneously: instant fuel and storable fat. And stored fat was the difference between surviving winter and not. A dripping honeycomb wasn't a treat. It was a lifeline, the richest thing most of your ancestors ever laid eyes on. The problem is that your body never got the update. It can't distinguish between wild honey and a can of soda. Modern food engineers figured this out and built an entire industry around it. sugar hidden in bread, sauce, cereal, drinks, your ancient craving exploited at industrial scale. That's why you can't stop reaching for it. Every intense food craving you experience today was forged across millions of years of scarcity. Your body isn't broken. It's just still preparing for a famine that never comes. Now here's where the story gets genuinely uncomfortable. Inside Gough's cave in England, archaeologists found human bones dating back roughly 14,700 years. The bones had been carefully processed with stone tools, not in the chaotic way you'd expect from a violent attack, but methodically, precisely. Skulls had been cleaned, the face and base removed, and the remaining dome carved and shaped into bowls. Long bones had been cracked open for marrow, identical in technique to how these same people processed horse and deer bones found in the same cave. And here's what makes this impossible to dismiss as survival cannibalism. There was plenty of other food. Horse remains, deer bones, other animals, all present, all consumed. Researchers calculated the caloric value of a human body at around 125,000 calories. A single bison provides nearly 5 times that. A mammoth over 20 times. Humans weren't eaten because they were efficient food. They were eaten because it meant something. One forearm bone at Gough's cave was engraved with a deliberate zigzag pattern after the meat had already been removed. This was ritual. This was ceremony. And Gough's cave isn't an isolated case. Similar processed human remains have been found at sites across Germany, France, Spain, and Croatia, spanning hundreds of thousands of years across entirely different cultures and eras. We don't fully understand why, but the evidence is clear. For a significant stretch of human prehistory, this was practiced, not always out of desperation, but out of deliberate choice. That's the part no one wants to sit with. There's one more chapter. Most food history skips over entirely. Our ancestors didn't always eat fresh meat, they couldn't. A mammoth kill might weigh several tons, far more than any group could consume before it spoiled. So they stored it, buried in soil, tucked in caves, submerged in cold streams. Days passed, weeks, sometimes months. When they returned, the meat was decomposing, soft with bacterial breakdown, smelling of decay. They ate it anyway, and some researchers believe this wasn't just reluctant necessity. Partially decomposed meat is easier to chew and easier to digest. The bacteria responsible for the breakdown also produce B vitamins that the human body requires. In some cases, aged and fermented meat may have actually been preferred. Your taste for fermented foods? That's the same instinct, sanitized and refined over millennia. Cheese, yogurt, wine, sourdough, pickles, soy sauce, all of them are controlled decomposition. The flavor profiles your brain finds complex and satisfying trace directly back to ancestors eating something far rawer on an African plain. Every time you enjoy a glass of wine or a piece of aged cheese, you're running an ancient program dressed up in a modern costume. Every craving you have for fat, for sweetness, for salt, for the richest thing you can find was carved into your biology across millions of years of hunger. Your body doesn't know about grocery stores. It doesn't know that the famine isn't coming. It only knows what it was built to know. Find the richest food available, eat as much as you can, store what's left. That 11 p.m. fridge pull when you're not even hungry? That's not weakness. That's a 3 million-year-old survival program still running in the background, doing exactly what it was designed to do. If you dropped a modern person into the world of 50,000 years ago, they'd likely be dead within days. No idea how to find clean water. No ability to identify edible plants from poisonous ones. Not strong enough or skilled enough to crack bone, climb for honey, or run down prey. You would stand in a landscape overflowing with food and slowly starve because you couldn't see any of it. But drop someone from 50,000 years ago into your kitchen? They would think they had walked into a god's private storehouse, sealed cold drinks, bread already baked by someone they'd never meet, fruit from climates they'd never heard of, meat that required no chase, no kill, no processing whatsoever. They would not be able to process what they were looking at. For 3 million years, every human who walked this earth was hungry more often than not. Cold, exhausted, uncertain whether tomorrow would bring anything at all. Every bite was earned, every meal was a small victory against starvation. You might be the first generation in the entire history of the species for whom that isn't true. And you have absolutely no idea how strange that is.